The sun was still yawning itself awake when Luke Mercer stepped out onto the porch of his ranch, the boards creaking beneath his boots. The world smelled of hay, dew, and solitude, something he'd long ago learned to live with, though he didn't much like it. The land stretched wide and open before him, dotted with grazing cattle, distant fences, and the faint ribbon of the dirt road leading to town. He ran a calloused hand through his hair, sighed, and took a long sip of bitter coffee. It was his daughter's first day back at school after the summer break, and though Luke never missed a sunrise, this morning carried a strange weight. He turned when he heard the screen door creak open. Ellie stood there, clutching her small school bag, her braids tied neatly with blue ribbons. She looked so much like her late mother that sometimes it hurt to meet her eyes. "You ready, Pumpkin?" Luke asked softly, setting his mug down. Ellie nodded but hesitated. "Daddy, do you think Miss Clara will be there again this year?" Luke smiled faintly. "I reckon so. She's the best teacher you ever had, isn't she?" Ellie's face lit up. "She's nice. She smells like cookies and always helps me with my drawings." Luke chuckled, though a part of him felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. He hadn't spoken to Miss Clara much, just polite exchanges when dropping Ellie off or helping repair the school's old fence last spring. But he remembered her eyes, gentle and full of kindness. She carried a quiet sadness too, though she hid it behind her smile. After breakfast, they rode the wagon toward town. Dust curled in the air behind them, glowing gold in the morning light. Ellie hummed to herself, kicking her boots against the wooden edge, and Luke just watched her. How carefree she was. How easily she filled silence with life. When they reached the schoolhouse, the familiar chatter of children echoed across the yard. Luke helped Ellie down, straightened her dress, and brushed a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "Now you be good and listen to your teacher," he said, kneeling beside her. "I will, Daddy," she promised, throwing her small arms around his neck before running toward the building. He watched her go, heart full and heavy all at once. Then, just as he turned to leave, he heard her voice, Miss Clara's, soft, warm, unmistakably familiar. "Mr. Mercer?" Luke turned. Clara stood by the door, sunlight spilling over her like a golden veil. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair tied up in a loose bun that looked like it had been done in a hurry. There was something fragile yet strong about her, a woman who'd learned to smile through heartache. "Morning, Miss Clara," Luke greeted, removing his hat out of courtesy. "Morning," she said, returning the smile. "Ellie's grown taller since spring. You're doing a fine job raising her." Luke shrugged slightly. "Just doing what I can. Her ma, well, she'd be proud of the both of us, I guess." Clara nodded, her gaze softening. She would. For a moment, the air between them felt tender, quiet, charged with something neither could name. Then Clara shifted, clearing her throat. "Listen, I know this is rather sudden, but I wanted to ask. There's a harvest festival this weekend in town. They're doing a charity dinner and, well," she hesitated, fingers twisting in front of her. "I was wondering if you'd, maybe, like to come?" Luke blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "Me?" She nodded, cheeks flushing a little. "Yes, I thought maybe Ellie would enjoy it too. But," she paused, biting her lip. "Actually, there's more. I don't have anyone to go with. They're having a harvest date dinner where guests pair up. I thought maybe, just for one day, you could be my date." Her words hung in the air, and Luke felt his breath catch. He looked at her, really looked at her, the nervous way she smiled, the way she stood, hoping he wouldn't laugh. He wasn't a man used to invitations like that, not after years of solitude and grief. "A date?" he repeated, unsure whether to smile or run for the hills. "Just for one day," Clara said quickly, her eyes wide. "Nothing more. You'd be helping me out, honestly. The school board's hosting the dinner, and it'd be awkward to show up alone." Luke rubbed the back of his neck, his heart pounding faster than he liked. "I don't know, Miss Clara. I ain't exactly good company for fancy suppers." She laughed softly, a sound that melted something cold inside him. "It's not fancy. It's just good food and people talking about crops and weather. You'll fit right in." He wanted to say no. He'd kept his heart locked away for too long, afraid of what it might cost to open it again. But when he saw her eyes, kind, hopeful, shining with quiet courage, something inside him gave way. "All right," he said finally, a small smile tugging at his lips. "One day." Her face brightened instantly. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer. I mean, Luke." He tipped his hat. "Guess I'll see you Saturday, then." As he walked back to his wagon, he felt lighter than he had in years. The desert wind brushed across his face, warm and alive. And for the first time in a long while, Luke Mercer wondered if maybe, just maybe, his heart hadn't gone completely dry after all. Behind him, Clara watched him go, her heart fluttering like a secret she wasn't ready to tell. She had her reasons for asking him, a loneliness that mirrored his own, a yearning she tried to bury under duty and routine. But as his figure disappeared down the road, she whispered under her breath, "Maybe one day is enough to start again." The night of the harvest festival came draped in golden dusk. The air was rich with the smell of roasted corn, wood smoke, and fresh pies cooling on tables. Lanterns hung from ropes stretched between trees, glowing like little suns, while fiddles and laughter carried across the open field. Townsfolk from miles around had gathered, dressed in their best. The world, for one evening, felt bright and alive, and Luke Mercer hadn't felt so out of place in years. He stood near the edge of the festival grounds, adjusting the collar of his old shirt. It was one of the few decent ones he owned, a gift from his late wife long ago, and it still carried a faint trace of lavender when the breeze hit right. He hadn't worn it since her funeral. Tonight, it felt almost like betrayal to put it on again. "Daddy, you look real nice," Ellie said, tugging at his sleeve with a grin. She wore a clean white dress with a blue sash, Miss Clara's doing, no doubt. Luke smiled faintly. "You too, Pumpkin. You go on and play with your friends. I'll be right here." She darted off toward a group of children near the bonfire, laughter echoing behind her. Luke turned his hat in his hands, glancing around for Clara. He half hoped she'd forgotten the whole thing, that maybe she'd changed her mind. But then, through the milling crowd, he saw her. Clara was standing by the long tables lined with food, talking with one of the town ladies. Her hair was down tonight, loose and shining in the lantern light, and she wore a simple green dress that hugged her gently without trying to impress anyone. When she caught sight of Luke, her face lit up in a way that made the noise of the crowd fade to nothing. "You came," she said, approaching him, her smile soft but full of something warm. "I said I would," Luke replied, his voice rougher than he meant. "You look different tonight." "Good different?" She teased lightly. He nodded. "Good." They stood there for a moment, both unsure what to say next. The town's band started up a lively tune, and couples began to move toward the open space by the fire to dance. Luke watched them, men spinning their wives, women laughing, skirts twirling. He couldn't remember the last time he'd danced. Clara followed his gaze, then turned to him with a mischievous spark. "You dance, Mr. Mercer?" He shook his head quickly. "Not since my wedding." "Well," she said, stepping a little closer, "maybe it's time you remembered how." Before he could protest, she held out her hand. Her eyes were steady, daring him softly. Luke hesitated, the old fear rising in him like a tide, but something about her calm patience drew him in. He took her hand. They stepped onto the dirt clearing, the music lilting around them. He felt stiff at first, moving like a man who didn't belong in his own skin. But Clara's hand in his was light, sure. She guided him gently, her laughter quiet and genuine when he stumbled. "Just follow my lead," she whispered. He did, and slowly, the rhythm found him. The music wrapped around them, simple and sweet. A fiddle, a guitar, a heartbeat. The crowd faded into a blur, the fire crackled, and the stars above stretched endlessly over the plains. When the song ended, Luke realized he hadn't stopped smiling the whole time. Clara's eyes met his, glimmering in the firelight. Neither of them spoke for a while, but the silence felt like understanding. The